There's something about being an Omega that people never tell you. Freedom sounds beautiful until you realize how hard it is to survive with it. My name's Noah Reed, 23, jobless again, living off instant noodles and my best friend's leftover groceries. I like freedom, I really do. I like waking up whenever I want, doing whatever I want, not bowing my head to some arrogant alpha who thinks my worth lies in my scent. But freedom doesn't pay rent. And lately, freedom's been kicking my ass. Bro, you look like death, Jay said, tossing me a can of soda as he sprawled across the couch. When's the last time you ate something that wasn't instant noodles? I cracked open the can, took a sip, and shrugged. Tuesday, I think. Jay smirked. You know, there's this thing called getting a job. Maybe you should try it. I did, I said dryly. Then my boss's alpha scent made me nauseous, so I quit. Mika, our third roommate and the quiet one, snorted from where he sat with his phone. You didn't quit, Noah. You poured coffee on him and stormed out. In my defense, he called me sweetheart. They both laughed, but my chest felt tight. Sometimes, I wondered if I'd made a mistake, choosing to live as a free will Omega in a world still ruled by alphas and hierarchy. I wanted independence, but all I had was debt, hunger, and a fading sense of pride. Jay leaned forward, eyes gleaming. Okay, new plan. Truth or dare? I narrowed my eyes. Jay, come on, humor me. You need excitement in your life. And don't pick truth, that's boring. I sighed. Fine. Dare. His grin widened, and I immediately regretted it. I dare you to sneak into the Cross mansion. My soda nearly slipped from my hand. What? You heard me. Jay, that's Liam Cross's house. The most powerful alpha in the city. The man whose stare could freeze lava. Exactly, Jay said with a wicked smile. All you have to do is sneak in, take a selfie in his living room, and get out. Easy. If you do it, I'll pay for your groceries for a week. Mika looked up. Or you'll end up in jail. Jay ignored him. What do you say, Noah? Prove that you're a real free will Omega. That stung more than it should have. Because that's what people always whispered behind my back. He acts strong, but he's just a scared Omega pretending to be brave. I clenched my jaw. Fine, I said, standing. One selfie. You better have dinner ready when I get back. The night air hit me the moment I stepped outside, cold, sharp, and smelling faintly of rain. The Cross mansion was only a few streets away, sitting high behind tall iron gates like a castle from another world. Liam Cross. I'd seen his photo in magazines, tall, broad-shouldered, all sharp edges and colder eyes. A classic alpha, the kind that made people bow when he walked past. I wasn't scared. Okay, maybe a little. But mostly I was determined not to give Jay the satisfaction of calling me a coward. By the time I reached the mansion, rain had started falling again, soft, steady drops that soaked my hoodie and plastered my hair to my forehead. I crept along the side path, my heart hammering as I searched for an open spot. To my surprise, a small window near the kitchen was slightly ajar. Seriously? I muttered. You'd think a billionaire would have better security. I pushed it open, squeezed myself through, and landed with a soft thud on the polished kitchen floor. Everything was spotless, marble counters, silver appliances, a faint scent of pine, and something warm, like cinnamon. The kind of house that screamed money and discipline. Just one photo, I whispered to myself, pulling out my phone. I crept into the hallway, my sneakers squeaking faintly against the floor. My heart pounded as I passed framed photos, all of Liam Cross with his little boy. The kid couldn't be older than 4 or 5. They looked happy, which was weird, because rumor said Liam's Omega had abandoned him years ago. Before I could think more about it, a deep voice shattered the silence. Who the hell are you? I froze. Standing at the end of the hallway was Liam Cross himself, tall, broad, wearing a black shirt that clung to his chest. His sharp amber eyes narrowed dangerously, and the air filled with his alpha scent, commanding, cold, powerful enough to make my knees weaken. Oh no, I stammered. I can explain. He took a step closer. You broke into my house. I didn't mean, it was a dare. Do I look like someone who cares about your games? His voice was low, rough. He pulled out his phone. You're lucky I don't have you arrested right now. Panic flared in my chest. Wait, please. I swear I wasn't trying to steal. But then, before either of us could say another word, a small voice interrupted. Popper? Liam and I both turned. A tiny boy stood at the top of the stairs, rubbing his sleepy eyes. Messy brown curls framed his face, and he clutched a stuffed bunny in one hand. His gaze landed on me, and then he smiled. Popper, you came back. I froze. Liam's entire body went still. I began, but the boy's small feet were already pattering down the steps. He ran straight into my arms before I could move, wrapping his little hands around my neck. The scent of baby shampoo and innocence filled the air. "Papa," he whispered again, trembling with happiness. Liam's voice was barely above a whisper. "Ethan." The alpha's expression shifted. Shock, confusion, something else I couldn't name. His phone slowly lowered. And me? I stood there, soaked, guilty, and holding a stranger's child who thought I was his lost parent. Just my luck. I didn't know what was worse. The fact that I had just broken into a billionaire alpha's house, or that I was now holding his son who refused to let go. Ethan's little arms were wrapped tight around my neck, his face buried in my soaked hoodie. The warmth of his small body made something ache inside me, something I didn't even recognize. "Ethan," Liam said softly, taking a step forward. "Let go, son. That's not." "Papa," the boy mumbled, tightening his hold. "Don't go again. Please." Liam froze. The pain in his eyes flickered too quickly to hide. Then he straightened, face going cold again. "Follow me," he said flatly. I opened my mouth to protest, but one look from him shut me up. I followed silently, Ethan still clinging to me, down the long hallway into a spacious living room. Everything in it was clean and controlled. Not a toy out of place, not a speck of dust on the shelves. Liam motioned for me to sit on the couch. I did awkwardly, while he disappeared for a moment and came back with a towel. He tossed it in my direction, without looking at me. "Dry off before you catch a cold," he said curtly. "Thanks," I muttered, unsure if that was kindness or just obligation. Ethan had fallen asleep against my shoulder, thumb in his mouth, still clutching my hoodie, as if letting go meant losing me forever. My heart twisted. "He's been having nightmares," Liam said quietly after a long silence. His voice was deeper, softer. "Since his mother left, he wakes up crying for her or for his other parent. Tonight must have reminded him of that." I swallowed, guilt crawling up my throat. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." "Break into my house?" he finished, his tone sharp again. "Yes, I noticed." I winced. "Look, I know how it sounds, but it was just a stupid dare. I wasn't going to steal anything." He crossed his arms. A free will Omega, with no sense of survival. Impressive. That stung more than I expected. "I can take care of myself," I said quietly. He gave me a cold, assessing look. "You call this taking care of yourself? Trespassing into an alpha's home at night?" I didn't answer. There was no point arguing with someone like him. The kind of alpha who radiated control with every breath. The kind who'd been hurt once and built walls so high no one dared climb them again. He sighed, rubbing his temple. "You can't leave tonight. It's late, the roads are flooded, and Ethan won't sleep unless you're here." My eyes widened. "Wait, what? You want me to stay?" "Temporarily," he said. "Until he's asleep. The guest room's down the hall." I blinked. "You're trusting a literal trespasser to stay under your roof?" His lips twitched faintly, not quite a smile. "I have cameras everywhere. If you steal so much as a spoon, I'll know." Wow. Comforting. He ignored that, turning away to scoop Ethan gently from my arms. The boy whimpered in protest, clutching my sleeve even in his sleep. Liam froze again, his jaw tightening as if the sight physically hurt him. "Fine," he muttered. "You stay until morning." That night, I lay in the guest room staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. The house was too quiet. No sound of laughter, no warmth, no signs of life besides the faint ticking of a clock. Everything about it felt lonely. I couldn't stop thinking about the look in Liam's eyes when Ethan called me Papa. It wasn't just shock, it was heartbreak. Like hearing that word ripped open an old wound he'd tried too long to forget. Maybe that's why I didn't leave. The next morning, I found him in the kitchen, already dressed in a crisp black suit. He looked like someone born to command. Ethan was sitting at the counter eating cereal, bright and cheerful, the exact opposite of his father. When he saw me, his little face lit up. "Papa." The spoon slipped from Liam's hand. Ethan ran over and hugged my legs. "You didn't leave." My chest tightened. "Of course not, buddy. You okay?" He nodded, eyes shining. "Can we go to the park today? Please." I looked helplessly at Liam. He didn't move for a long time. Finally, he said, "Eat your breakfast first." Ethan cheered and ran back to the table. I turned to Liam, lowering my voice. "I'll leave after this, I promise." He didn't respond right away. His gaze lingered on Ethan, then shifted to me. "You're good with him," he said quietly. I shrugged. "Kids like me. Probably because I act like one." That earned me a ghost of a smirk, but it vanished quickly. He straightened, all business again. I've been searching for someone Ethan can connect with. Every nanny quits within weeks. He doesn't trust anyone. I blinked. Are you saying what I think you're saying? Liam's eyes met mine, deep amber, unreadable. You seem to have gained his trust in less than an hour. So I'm making you an offer. I frowned. An offer? He reached into a drawer, pulled out a sleek folder, and slid it across the counter. Inside were neatly typed pages with a title that made my heart stop. Temporary Parental Substitute Agreement. You want me to pretend to be his father? I asked, stunned. Not his father, he corrected. Just his papa, until he stops asking for one. My throat went dry. That's insane. You don't even know me. I know enough, he said coldly. You're desperate, unemployed, and reckless, but you're honest. And Ethan smiled for the first time in months tonight. I looked down at the contract again, my reflection trembling in the glass table. I'll pay you well, Liam said, voice steady. A place to stay, food, security. In return, you play your part, no strings, no complications. No strings, huh? Somehow, I didn't believe that for a second. If someone had told me 2 weeks ago that I'd be living in a billionaire alpha's mansion, pretending to be his son's papa, I would have laughed in their face. Now, here I was, wearing borrowed pajamas, flipping pancakes while a sleepy 5-year-old sat at the kitchen island in a cold, intimidating alpha watched from behind his newspaper. My life had officially turned into a soap opera. Don't burn the pancakes this time, Liam said without looking up. I won't, I muttered, flipping one anyway. You're welcome for cooking, by the way. Most employers provide breakfast for their live-in Omegas. I'm not your employer, he said calmly. You signed a contract. You're a temporary family substitute. Right. Temporary fake papa. Totally normal. He glanced up from the paper, and that single raised eyebrow made my heart skip. Damn it. Why did he have to look that good in the morning? His dark hair was slightly tousled, his sleeves rolled up, veins visible on his forearm as he sipped his coffee. Papa. Ethan's little voice interrupted my very inappropriate thoughts. Can I have extra syrup? I smiled automatically. Sure, buddy. But no swimming in it this time, okay? Ethan giggled and nodded, his curls bouncing. He'd grown attached fast, too fast. Every time he called me Papa, something inside me softened. I kept reminding myself it was temporary, that I was only helping until he healed, but it was getting harder to believe that. When I looked up, Liam was watching me. Not cold, not distant, just quietly watching. What? I asked. He shook his head slightly. You're good with him. It shouldn't have meant much, but somehow that simple sentence warmed me more than the coffee in my hand. The first few days had been awkward, filled with polite silences and accidental collisions in the hallway. But somewhere between bedtime stories and shared dinners, the atmosphere shifted. Liam stopped being just Mr. Cross. He became Liam, the man who stood by the window late at night, staring out at the city as if it reminded him of something lost. Sometimes I'd find him there and join him, offering quiet company instead of words. One evening, after putting Ethan to bed, I found him again by that same window. The city lights reflected in his amber eyes, making him look both powerful and lonely. You're up late, I said softly. He didn't turn. I don't sleep much. Nightmares. A pause. Memories. I hesitated, then stepped closer. Of him? His jaw tightened. Don't. I didn't mean to. I said don't. The sharp edge in his voice made me flinch, but then his shoulders slumped, and his tone softened. Sorry. It's just complicated. I get it, I said quietly. I've had people walk away too. It makes you stop trusting anyone who tries to stay. He finally turned to look at me. For the first time, I saw something vulnerable beneath that calm mask. Why did you really agree to this? He asked. Money. I smiled faintly. Partly. But also because Ethan looked at me like I was someone worth staying for. I couldn't walk away from that. The air between us shifted, heavier, warmer. He took a small step forward. I could feel the faint pull of his alpha scent, clean, deep, a mix of cedar and smoke. My heart stuttered. Liam, I whispered. He stopped right in front of me, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating off him. His gaze dropped to my lips, then back to my eyes. This is a bad idea, he murmured. Probably, I breathed. And then he kissed me. It wasn't rough or demanding, just quiet searching. Like he was trying to remember what it felt like to want someone without hurting. My fingers curled into his shirt. For a moment, the world went still. No pain, no lies, just the soft sound of rain outside and the steady beat of our hearts. When we finally pulled apart, his expression was unreadable. "That shouldn't have happened," he said quietly. "Yeah," I whispered, even though every nerve in me screamed otherwise. We didn't speak of it again. But something changed after that, something neither of us could undo. If anyone walked into the Cross mansion now, they'd think we were a real family. Ethan's laughter echoed through the halls again. The once cold house now smelled like pancakes and crayons instead of disinfectant and silence. Liam even started coming home early sometimes, sitting with us during dinner, teasing me when I burned the toast. We weren't perfect, but it felt right. Like something broken was slowly healing. And maybe that's why I stopped worrying about when it would end. Because every time Liam smiled, really smiled, I felt that small, dangerous hope whisper, maybe it doesn't have to. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon when it all shattered. Ethan was playing in the living room, Liam helping me carry laundry upstairs. We were laughing, really laughing, about something ridiculous he said about my cooking. Then the doorbell rang. "Were you expecting anyone?" I asked. Liam frowned. "No." He went to open the door. My stomach dropped when I saw him. A tall, sleek Omega stood on the doorstep, hair perfectly styled, eyes sharp and calculating. His scent hit the air, strong, intoxicating, familiar. "Mason," Liam said, his voice low, almost unreadable. Mason smiled smoothly. "Hello, Liam. It's been a long time. I came back for my family." Liam's body stiffened. "You don't get to just come back." Mason's gaze flicked to me, assessing. "And who is this Omega living in my house? Taking care of my son?" Ethan froze mid-play, staring at Mason. "Papa?" Mason arrived like a storm dressed as a gentleman. He stepped into the living room with that quiet, measured confidence that makes people mistake cruelty for calm. He smiled at Liam like nothing had happened in the years he'd been gone. He smiled at Ethan like he'd never left the kid at all. But the smile didn't reach his eyes, and I felt it like a tick under the skin. Wrong, too precise and dangerous. Ethan, bless him, went still when Mason said his name. He kept his distance, toes curled under the edge of the rug as if bracing. When his gaze found me, it softened. He reached out and tucked his hand into the sleeve of my hoodie. The simple gesture did more than anything I said. It told me I mattered to him. Liam's face was a line of hard stone. He didn't bother with niceties. "You shouldn't be here," he said, calm and flat as ice. Mason's laugh was a measured thing. "I'm here to reunite with my son," he said in a slow voice, like a rehearsed monologue. "That's all. Reunite." The word had a dagger twist to it. I watched Liam's jaw harden and Ethan pull closer. That's when Mason turned, smoothly, the way predators do when choosing prey. His eyes flicked to me, then brightened as if a new idea had bloomed. "And who is this?" he asked, with endless vocivility. "An imposter?" I snorted at the insult inside me, but I swallowed it. I knew who I was here for. I lifted Ethan into my arms and felt his warm weight settle against me. Real, trusting, uncomplicated by history. Mason's soft voice wormed into the room. He should be with his real parents. Children need their real parents, Liam. Don't you agree? Liam's answer was a growl. "You abandoned him." "You left us no choice," Mason said. Injury played like an instrument. "I was forced to go, you gave me no choice." I watched them circle each other in words. I watched Mason lay seeds, tiny ones, reminders that Liam had once failed, that he'd loved and been hurt. I watched Liam flinch at phrases that sounded like admissions of weakness. For the first few hours, I kept to small, mundane things, building a puzzle with Ethan, reading the same dog book until my voice went hoarse. Those quiet moments were sanctuary. Liam would stand at the doorway with a coffee, watching, then walk away. Sometimes he'd stay for a page. Sometimes he'd come in and hand me a towel after Ethan spilled juice. There were edges to him that softened when no one was looking. That afternoon I decided to cook. I measure, chop, stir, do something concrete while the three of them tried to rebuild or break apart whatever this fragile family was becoming. I chose comfort food, baked chicken strips, no breadcrumbs this time, because of the mess, mashed potatoes, and steamed green beans. Ethan loved mashed potatoes like they were a personality trait. Liam hovered in the living room, Mason planted like a polished statue on the couch. Ethan sat at the table, swinging his legs, humming. I moved through the kitchen with practiced ease, knives arranged, ingredients lined up, everything put back in place when I used it. I keep my knives in a block at the back, out of reach, always accounted for. The meal was going smoothly. I plated Ethan first and put his bowl on the low table. He reached for it with delighted squeals. I poured his juice, added a strawberry, and turned to get the plates for Liam and Mason. The kitchen was warm with steam and a pan's soft hiss. It all happened fast. I had just tied a dish towel around my waist when I heard a small thud and a startled gasp. Then a sharper sound, metal meeting wood, and the noise of something sliding across the counter. My heart jumped. I spun. Ethan stood by the counter, fingers red at the tip. A knife, my small paring knife, the one I use for fruit, lay on the table, its tip close enough to the bowl that a breath could have tipped it in. The block, where I always leave knives, was open and one slot empty. "Ethan!" I shouted, rushing forward. He looked up at me with wide, bewildered eyes and lifted his hand. A thin line of red shimmered on his fingertip. He sniffled. For a moment the world froze. I rounded the table and scooped him into my arms. "Are you okay? Baby, did you cut yourself?" I pressed my thumb to the wound. It bled, not too deep, but there, impossible to ignore. Mason's face was a study in perfect timing. He looked shocked, then sympathetic, then eerily calm. "Oh my God, are you all right, Ethan?" He was already kneeling. Liam snapped into parenting mode, voice taut. "Where did that knife come from?" Liam demanded, eyes snapping to me. Panic shoved cold words into my throat. "I keep them in the block, Liam. I always put them back." The block sat in the usual spot. The slot where the paring knife belonged was empty. My hands shook. Mason's smile was a blade in disguise. "Maybe it was carelessness," he said. His voice was light, clinical. "Kids get at things. Maybe someone didn't put it away." Ethan whimpered and rubbed his finger, eyes huge and frightened. I kissed the top of his head, trying to steady him. "It's just a small cut. I'll clean it," I told him, voice too bright. My stomach clenched because the absence of the knife in the block was physical proof. How do you argue with an empty slot? Liam's face shifted. He picked up Ethan's hand, inspecting the wound. Then he looked at me with something like disbelief. "Noah, did you leave it out?" "No," I said, louder than I meant to. "I didn't. I stammered, because the truth was that I couldn't comprehend it. "I keep track. I always do. I know where everything is." Mason moved with slow grace toward the counter, the picture of concern. He crouched, hand hovering over the knife's tip as if repulsed, then pointed to the counter where a smudge of red had smudged across the wood. "It was right here. Someone must have set it down and walked away. A careless moment. And look, there's a smear of blood near the plate." Liam's gaze followed, and for the first time in weeks, he looked less like a fortress and more like a man on the edge. The way his eyes flicked from the slot in the knife block to the smear to me cut me to the bone in a way nothing else had. "You were cooking," Mason said softly, eyes on mine. "If someone is careless, it's easier to believe someone like you. Someone who lives a wild life and never thinks about consequences. I can't leave the safety of my child with him, Liam." He let the sentence hang. The room smelled of fear and frying oil. Ethan's sniffles filled the hollow parts of my chest. I wanted to scream that I loved him, that I would never intentionally let harm near him. But a single missing knife, a smear on the counter, and my reputation as the free will Omega, loud, impulsive, careless, felt like a verdict already pronounced. Liam's jaw worked. He looked at me like he was trying to fold together the scraps of evidence into a shape that made sense. The missing slot, the blood, my history. For a beat I saw the man I'd been falling for, protective, scared, exhausted. Then he turned away, as if to shield Ethan from both of us. "Noah," he said, voice low and controlled. "You should leave. Now. For Ethan's safety." The words hit like ice. Ethan clung to me, eyes huge and filled with confusion. "Papa," he whispered. Mason didn't bother to hide his relief. It was a small, almost polite smile, an insect of triumph. "It's unfortunate," he said, voice soft, almost sincere. "But some accidents, some risks, are avoidable." I pressed my lips to Ethan's hair, tasting metal and fear. "I didn't do this," I whispered into his curls. "I didn't." Liam's shoulders hunched. He looked at me like someone choosing a path in a storm. "Get out, Noah." There was no malice in it now, only a raw, trembling fear that whatever choice he made next could break his son. I wanted to grab him, to shake him until he understood. But the house felt tilted, and there were two men inside who had reasons to bend it away from me. One was my friend, one was my rival. Both saw a different version of the truth. My legs moved before my brain did. I turned, the door heavy as I left, and the rain outside was cold enough to sting. Behind me, the house closed up into silence. Ethan's small voice followed me, fragile and asking. "Papa?" I walked into the rain with a knife-shaped space inside my chest, and the sound of Mason's soft, victorious chuckle still in my ears. I disappear into the night, leaving the house, Ethan, and Liam behind, while Mason watches, smiling like someone who knew exactly how to plant a doubt and harvest a life. I sat on the edge of my bed in the apartment I shared with my friends, staring at the wall like it held the answers I needed. The room smelled faintly of takeout and old laundry, a stark contrast to the mansion I had just left behind. Liam had told me to leave, and I had obeyed, even though my heart had shattered with each step I took out the front door. Days passed, or maybe it was weeks. I had stopped counting. I buried myself in work, friends, and noise to drown the ache. Yet, no matter what I did, the image of Ethan's tiny, trusting face and Liam's amber eyes haunted me. Then one evening, Jay flicked on the TV. The news was on. I froze. Breaking news: Mason Hammond has been arrested for child negligence. Authorities say Mr. Hammond intentionally manipulated events to create tension and distrust within the Cross household. I sank back against the couch. Relief washed over me, but it was tangled with sadness. Liam hadn't come to me. Ethan hadn't called. The news told me Mason was gone, but it didn't tell me if I could go back. It didn't tell me if Liam wanted me there. My hands shook as I turned off the TV. The silence of the apartment pressed in on me, heavier than any storm outside. I miss them. I miss my family. But my pride, my fear of rejection, kept me rooted in that chair. Days later, there was a knock at the door. My heart skipped. I didn't move at first. Then, another knock, gentler this time, almost hesitant. I opened the door to find Liam standing there. His hair was slightly messy, his suit rumpled, but his eyes, those amber eyes, were filled with desperation and sincerity I hadn't seen in weeks. And behind him, holding onto his pant leg, was Ethan. "Papa Noah," Ethan whispered, a small frown on his face. Liam stepped forward, hands raised slightly in a pleading gesture. "Noah, I'm sorry. For doubting you. For letting Mason's lies come between us. I need you to come home. Ethan needs you. I need you. Please." I stared at him, my chest tight. My heart wanted to run into his arms, to scoop up Ethan and never let go. But the sadness, the heartbreak of the weeks apart, made my voice hoarse. "I saw the news," I said softly, still holding the door closed. "Mason, he's been arrested. But Liam, you didn't come for me before. You let me leave." "I know," he admitted, voice low and raw. "I was stubborn, scared. I thought I was protecting Ethan, protecting you, even. But I see now I was wrong. Noah, I can't live without you. Neither of us can. Please." Ethan tugged at my sleeve, looking up with wide, trusting eyes. "Papa, come back?" The weight of his small hands, his innocent voice, broke something in me. I let out a shuddering breath and stepped inside, scooping Ethan into my arms. "I'm here, baby," I whispered. "I'm not leaving again." Liam closed the door behind me and pulled me into his arms, pressing his forehead to mine. "I promise, nothing, no one, will come between us again. We're a family. All of us together." I felt tears spill down my cheeks, and Liam kissed them away, a soft, lingering touch that spoke of forgiveness, love, and promise. Weeks later, the mansion felt alive again. Laughter echoed through the halls. Ethan ran around in socks, chasing a ball, while Liam and I shared a quiet moment in the kitchen. I leaned against the counter, holding Liam's hand, the warmth between us more comforting than any blanket. "See," Liam whispered, brushing a lock of hair from my forehead. "This is home. We're safe. Finally." I smiled, pressing a kiss to his temple. "Yes, home. And family. We've earned this." Ethan squealed from the living room. "Papa, play with me." Liam and I exchanged a glance and laughed, chasing our little boy around the room, our hearts finally mended. The weeks of pain, the heartbreak, the fear, they were all behind us. For the first time, truly, I felt at peace. And I knew, no matter what the future held, we would face it together. Broken hearts healed, Mason gone, and our family, Noah, Liam, and Ethan, finally whole. Sunlight streamed through the kitchen window. Ethan laughed, balancing on a chair, waving a spatula like a sword. "Papa, catch me," he shouted. I grinned at Liam, who rolled his eyes but smiled. "He's going to break something. Or he's going to break my heart first," I teased, and Liam's hand found mine across the counter. Ethan toppled onto the floor in a fit of giggles. Liam scooped him up, spinning him around. I laughed, wrapping my arms around both of them. Finally, home felt like home. Safe, warm, complete. I kissed Liam's temple, whispering, "I love you." "I love you too," he replied, pressing a soft kiss to my lips. Ethan cheered. "Papa and Daddy forever." And yes, we really were.